Hey, this is Ramon. Channel's Alpha 4. That's Alpha 4 IV. And this is part of my Bible study series. And today we are doing Genesis chapter 6, the Nephilim, a warning of the flood, and the preparation of the ark. So here is, in the story, you see a warning against the breaching of the divide between the divine and the humane, or between the mortal and the immortal world. So it's interesting that here in the ancient times they want to set up a barrier. So I don't know if that's the start of a class system or a caste system, as it were, but that's where you see that. You also see the statement that no human will live longer than 120 years, which is interesting in two senses. One, because throughout the Old Testament you see people living up to like 700 years. And in today's modern society, you see that the lifespan of humans does actually seem to be stuck somewhere at 120. I don't think anyone's made it beyond like 118. So it's interesting to both get that right and to have it be completely contradicted throughout the Genesis story. Then we see the Nephilim. And the Nephilim and the warriors of renown are not exactly the same. If you actually read the text closely, you'll see there are two different groups. And here is where you get the idea of the children of angels. I didn't talk about the Lilu and Lilith in the previous Genesis stories because they're not in it, because it's just not in the actual text. In the same way, fallen angels are not in this text. The term fallen angels is not in here. It's not. We want to put it in there because we see Nephilim. But Nephilim, technically speaking, are giants. Okay? So basically, just like how with the Greeks, how they would discover dinosaur bones and they would discover mastodon skulls, and they would think, oh, well, those must have been Cyclops. The ancients here would have found bones and thought they were Nephilim. The children of giants are giants themselves. But they do have the heroes of renown, and that is a way to explain the ancient demigods and heroes of the ancient world. To say that, no, they aren't children of gods, with a capital G, but gods, lowercase g, which is our term for angels. So gods, lowercase g, equals angels, and so therefore that's where you could expound upon and get the idea of fallen angels, and that would make all the ancient gods and goddesses actually just fallen angels, and the demigods, the children of the fallen angels and man. But that's really stretching the actual text to the limit of its scope. Okay? Here we also see the uncreation and then recreation of everything. So this will reoccur a few times in Genesis, where everything will be destroyed and everything will come back. This time we're going to see it with the flood. Okay, I think this is the third time. This might even be the final time in the story, although it's hinted at again later on with Sodom and Gomorrah, but that one's more localized and less worldwide. The flood is due to wickedness, and here wickedness is violence. And later on in a few chapters, you'll see that violence means something very interesting. It's not just the violence of man, it's the violence of earth. And I've always understood it as the violence of man. But the animals themselves are corrupt and are killing each other. Very interesting to expand it to that level of corruption. Let's see. So this is not due. So having it being due to wickedness means that it's not due to the noisiness of humanity or overpopulation. Those are Mesopotamian ideas, because the cities of Mesopotamia were crowded. But the people of the Israelites and the Hebrews, these people are nomadic people in the wastelands. So these people are not experiencing overcrowdedness or overpopulation. In fact, they need to populate, hence the command to be fruitful and multiply. The ark is a metaphor for the temple, and a temple is a metaphor for an organized universe. So the idea of the ark is that it's a floating temple. Okay, so that's something to think about. And then there comes a question: does God make mistakes? This is the first time that this really comes up. Because until now, God has given us free will, and that seems to be a good thing in general. But then in this story, in some translations, God says that humanity is his one mistake. So that is interesting. And he decides to wipe all of humanity out. Now, the cause for that is the Nephilim. But the Nephilim are not addressed again in any substantial way, just humanity. So, something to think about. So, one interpretation of chapter 6 is that it is a dramatization of God's desire for a relationship with humanity. That's why humanity is taking the forefront. Although some could argue that humanity is taking the forefront because it's humanity who's telling the story. And then in some versions of the text, the floodwaters are called the abyss. And anyone who's read Nietzsche understands that there's a lot of meaning attached to the abyss. So anyway, that is Genesis chapter 6. See you in the next one.